And I'm going to try to get through verse 28 tonight, but I don't know. Oh, there she goes again. She's stealing lines from movie. Good luck. All right, so we're coming down to it. There's not but a couple of chapters in Proverbs left, so we are starting to see now some reoccurring themes, right? It's basically...
Was that you?
It twere me. It were me. It might be something important.
Oh, it doesn't sound. Got to 28.
So could be the Lord giving me the secret. No, it's not. So okay. Oh my goodness! Look at you. Okay, so we're going to pick up in Proverbs now. We've been studying, like I said, and a lot of the. I'll have to forgive me. I'm just a little discombobulated. We back in the office today, and today was particularly hectic. So I'm still catching up. So we were talking the first part of the chapter, depending on untrustworthy people, fools, and that sort of thing. So we're going to pick up in verse 17. Now I find this to be a very interesting verse. Interfering in someone else's argument is as foolish as yanking a dog's ears. Now, everybody goes, well, my own dog, right? I play with him, and I like this, and we're just playing. So what does that mean? Well, so we lose a little bit in the translation here. The taking a dog, really, the word stray is missing, okay? So the intent of this scripture was a strange dog or a stray dog. I think King James actually...
stray.
Yeah, stray. One of the versions that I was looking at prepping for tonight actually said mad dog, right? And so we'd think twice, right? How many of y'all have ever been scared, even if briefly, of a dog, right? They walk out, they look at you, the head goes down, and they growl. Arr, right?
Wait till you get about that far, have about that far space when they hit the chain.
When they hit the chain, yeah.
Woo!
And so right. So here the obvious wisdom here is you wouldn't go up and grab a mad dog or a stray dog or a strange dog by the ears, right? Because you just don't know how they're going to react, right? And so while this wisdom would seem to be apparent, the actual point.
Those are moms.
No, those are.
Sorry. He's making me steal people's cookies. He turned me into the cookie monster.
Oh my goodness.
Turning you into?
Did Pastor steal your cookies?
No, she had saved them for me, but I didn't realize it, so I'd already gotten some.
Oh.
So I said, you can have those.
So the point of this story is not to avoid canines, but the point of it is to watch out for similar situations, right? To become involved in a quarrel for which you have no stake. How many of y'all have ever gotten drawn into a quarrel, an argument between two people, and you really don't care, right? But you just somehow got sucked in. I have been there. And I have two questions. Whenever I get in a situation like that, I have two questions. First, how did I get into this? And second, how do I get out? Right? Because I have no dog in the fight. right? And yet here I am in the middle of it. Now, what typically happens is that these two people who are going at it, right, one after the other, you get in the middle of it, and all of a sudden, what happens?
They turn on you.
They both turn on you, and now you're outnumbered 2-1, right? Even when we have to, when it becomes necessary to prevent harm, right? Somebody's fixing to kill somebody else, and you go to get involved. This is a situation where there's not really a win-win, right? It's going to be a nasty story. And I double-checked my facts here, but every police officer will tell you the one call they hate to go on is a domestic dispute. A husband and a wife, or a parent and a child who are arguing or going at, because why? Because there's no win in that situation, right? You're going to wade off into the middle of that, and pretty soon, I mean, I have seen and heard testimony from officers who, the woman is getting just wiped up. I mean, the man, the husband, is wiping the floor with her, and the cop goes in there and grabs him and is trying to get him under control, and suddenly he's fighting her too. Right? You leave my husband alone. Right? And so...
Then don't call me no more.
Don't call me. Why am I... How did I get into this mess? And how do I get out? Right? But this is what it is here. We are foolish because we get involved in other people's arguments. Right? We got a sister, or we got an aunt, or we got a relative, and they come in. And one thing I've learned when someone comes in with a tale of horror, right? Oh, well, this person, they done me wrong. Husband, wife, doesn't matter, right? They treated me badly. They stole all the money. They spent all the money, whatever it is. There's always a half of the story you're not hearing. Right? And these parents who take their children at their word, right? Child comes home from school and says, my teacher did this to me, and I didn't do nothing. Not a responsible parent in the world looks at that child and says, oh my, you poor victim, let me go down and yell at this teacher, right? No, the responsible parent's like, okay, so what did you do? Because I'm not hearing anything that puts you in a bad light, right? You're not telling me the whole story, right? But yet we have people who will do exactly this. They'll say, oh, my goodness, and they'll go and they'll sally forth into that fight, and it's really none of their business. My daddy would tell, we would go to, this is back in the day, we would go to the open house, meet the teacher nights, right? And my daddy would stand there and he would talk to the teacher for a few minutes, and if he liked the teacher, he would bring me up. He said, this is my son, he's in your class. He said, you have my permission to spank him, and if you do, when he gets home, I will give him another one. I did not get any spankings going through school. Not because I was scared of the teacher, but because my daddy was backing her up, and him I was worried a little about, right? But we have to be careful about getting involved. Now, not too many nights ago, we read in Proverbs about a wise king never makes a decision unless he's heard the whole story. What's the whole story? We never tell bad on ourselves. Right? When we tell a story, if I'm going to be telling Jeremy how my wife has mistreated me, poor, pitiful me, oh, I'm a person who deserves great sympathy, I'm going to leave out anything that makes me look bad. Right? How many of y'all watched the current event in the news? There's two women got into an altercation at a grocery store parking lot in some other state, and one of them shot the other. They got into an argument over who was right, who had the right of way. One was walking, one was in a car. And part of this article struck me, right? Part of it that struck me was one lady was dead, and the other lady said, well, she spit at me. So, right, she spit on me or spit at me, right? So I shot her. That's highly offensive. I shot her. And the first thing that came to my mind was, did anybody else see that? Because you just hear everyone was saying this woman was wonderful, a great mother, so on and so forth, etc., 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 which may or may not be true. But only the woman offended, oh no, I had justification. She did a terrible thing, right? Because I can't be the bad person. We always want to make sure that I'm not the bad person here. You are. So we always, my daddy used to tell me this. He'd say, son, if you believe half of what you see and none of what you read, you'll probably be ahead of the game, right? People want to protect themselves. So here it's telling you that. Don't get involved in someone else's argument. You don't know all that has transpired. I don't know how many times in the last few years we've seen video, police officer video cam, right? And what do they always show you? That 30 seconds where the cop is finally putting down whoever, but they never show the 6 minutes that led up to that, right? When it could have gone the other way. So we have to be careful when we get involved. And here Proverbs quite clearly saying, if you don't have any stake in that argument, let them folks figure it out for themselves. Don't get involved. The wise person understands that getting involved, even if I have to, this is going to be a very difficult situation. Okay? So we want to be very careful about how we handle ourselves, how we deal with others. Just as damaging as a madman shooting a deadly weapon is someone who lies to a friend and then says, I was only joking. It was a joke. Okay? Now, myself, personally, I have never found a practical joke to be funny. I just never have. Right? I like humor. I laugh at a lot of stuff, but I never laugh at someone else's suffering or misery. It's
My wife does.
I laugh because she does.
Specifically mine.
right. Now,
She does.
now,
It's funny.
now I'm not talking about, somebody, slipping on a banana peel, right? But I'm talking about where you set them up, right?
Oh, yeah.
There was a television channel here not too long ago, and they had a show dedicated to that kind of
Yes,
lunacy,
we know what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
right? And so, just as damaging as a madman. Now, unfortunately, right, we've really come to understand this comparison. This comparison was written several thousand years ago. And if you've ever paid close attention to the aftermath of a mass shooting or stabbing, or that guy that ran through the parade here, 6 or 8, 9 months ago and just ran over as many people as he could run over, right? That's the kind of thing that this type of behavior is like. We don't have an understanding. We think it's funny, but the damage that we're doing to others. Like I said, there was TV shows that great amusement out of this type of format. And I've never understood it. The damage done to the victims by a trusted friend is sometimes beyond repair. Right? To come in and say, I'm sorry, but your best dog just died, got run over, and then when they, oh no, and they run outside and then just laugh, I was only joking, ha ha ha, right? that's as Christians, particularly, we have to be trustworthy. People have to trust when we say something, it's true. Now, like I said, I'm not talking about, dad jokes, punny jokes.
Shoes untied.
Huh?
Your shoes untied.
Yeah, my shoes untied. What? And then thump me in the nose. That's not funny.
Actually, it's pretty.
That's not funny. That's not humorous. Okay? So, but we have to be careful how far we take a joke on somebody. Now, there's also an inference in this verse here, and I've treated the first several bullets here as someone who is poking fun, right? Who is intentionally not malicious. But there's also an inference in this verse about someone who is malicious, who will say something, right? And we've known people like this, who will say something, and they go, oh, no, really, I'm only kidding. But they were serious. They meant it, right? And it was their way, like...
Would this be similar to whenever someone starts the sentence with, I don't mean to offend, but...
It could be. But it's someone who starts off very seriously and then tries to back it all back out. Like you look like the south end of a northbound mule. No, really, I'm just kidding. You really don't. No, I'm serious. No way, I'm just kidding. You see?
And I've always felt
Travis.
just
Yeah, you look like the northbound end. It's really,
I still look like a mule, just whichever end.
one end or the other. Who cares, right?
She always calls me.
Psychology, I've come to believe that probably whenever someone makes a joke, they truly believe it 90% of the way. So what they're saying is what they believe
Right.
90% of the time.
And
So
they're
if they make fun of someone or anything like that, that's what they truly believe about the
Right.
person.
Yeah.
and in part of this, how many of y'all came into adulthood with some phobia about your person because of childhood taunts? Your ears are big. Your nose is big. Your face is crooked, right? Something that all of a sudden everybody's going, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. You're short. Well, but some of y'all are short. I mean, that's true. Yeah.
Been teased about it all my life.
Yeah. And now myself, right? My dad was 5'7", I'm 5'8". I was an inch taller than my dad. I considered myself to be tall. Until one summer, my brother went from being 2 inches shorter than me than being a foot taller than me, right? He's 6'4", and I never, ever looked at my brother as being short until I saw him one day from a distance walking across his front yard with his son, who is almost 7 feet tall. And I was like, and they were walking, I seen him from behind, and I said, dang, who's that walking with my brother? Because I thought the tall one was my brother because his son looks a lot like him from the back. And I realized, no, the short one is my brother. And I was like, oh my goodness, he's short. But I was teased about ears, nose, 4 eyes, all that kind of stuff. And kids can do that. And you carry these phobias with you. Okay, so remember that when you're making a joke. If you're making a joke that's a personal affront, right, it can be as damaging as somebody walking into a mall and just shooting indiscriminately.
Another thing that you have to, especially as a believer in Christ, a disciple of Jesus, the first question you have to ask is, would Jesus say that?
Right.
Well, the answer is no. Secondly, you have to take into consideration if that person that you are always poking fun at, for whatever reason and for whatever part of their personality, temperament, physical appearance, whatever, and they act as though it doesn't bother them, trust me, it bothers them.
Oh, yeah.
All right? So the truth is, unless it is if it's something that two buddies are always picking at each other about, right? It's one of their quirks that each of them have, and it's an inside joke that both of them have agreed, hey, this is how we rib each other. That's one thing.
That's one thing.
But if you're someone who is constantly finding something wrong with someone else as a believer in Jesus, pay attention to not just how they react, but how they don't react.
Right.
And how they will, depending on who the person is, they will either physically attack, and when I say physically, they may not punch you, but they may get aggressive and say, you know what, I don't appreciate you talking to me like that.
I know I am, but what are you?
But they will physically recoil away from you.
Right.
Like a little child
Right.
would. Because the truth is, those words go way back into the recesses of their mind to something that they dealt with as
Right.
a child.
And
So as believers in Jesus, we should never, ever, ever make fun of someone.
right.
If I can add to that, you had saying how they reacted, but you also have to kind of look at yourself and be like, am I saying that to get a good feeling about myself?
Right.
Because if you get giddy or happy that you're making fun of someone because it makes you feel better about yourself, and that's really it's a selfish thought, and it's definitely not of God.
It's not of God.
Right.
So,
And so that leads us down rabbit trail alert. Rabbit trail alert.
but
leads
when
us-
you get into these things, it will take you to
Right.
other places.
So that leads us to why we judge others. Okay? So when God judges, He judges with righteous judgment, right? When we judge against ourselves as standard. Right? I would never do that. Ergo, what you are doing is wrong. I have never done that. Ergo, that you have done it makes you a bad person. Okay? And so we judge, and we judge on this sliding scale, and it's like it all goes back to when Jesus was walking the earth, and He talked about the two men praying, right? And the sinner prayed, I'm not even worthy to look at heaven, let alone speak, but please forgive me my sins. And then the Pharisee, the righteous, pompous, arrogant Pharisee said, I thank God I'm not like that guy. Right? At least I'm not as bad as that guy. Because that guy is really bad. And so that makes me better.
Why are you getting closer
I
to
don't
me?
know. It's just one of them things, bro. I'm kidding. Okay?
There he goes.
There he goes. So y'all get. So we judge and we base like I must be the standard of perfection. Because after all,
Mac Davis.
I'm all that
Lord, it's hard to
and
be
a bag
humble
of chips.
when you're perfect in every way.
When you're perfect in every way, it's hard to be humble, right? But we do that. And I've told this story before. We had a dear lady at church many years ago. Different church, different era, and young couple. Hard to believe, but Dawn and I were in the younger set, right? I know we were young.
Tell me it's not
This
wrong.
is true. We had just killed the last dinosaur. And they had J.W. Blaze had just invented fire. So, but we were the young kids in church. All of us. There were several couples of us, all in our early mid-20s, married less than 10 years, and one of the other couples they stayed about 2 convenience stores ahead of a bounce check. Okay, they got a term for that. And but anyway, then I write a check over here for cash so they could go get the money in the bank so they could cover that check which was coming in. Then they have to go. Then they get paid and everything would be fine for a day and a half, and then it'd start all over. And so I mean, living paycheck to paycheck. I'm not saying right or wrong, but that's just how they were making ends meet. And they missed one and bounced 2 or 3 checks. And so there was a lady that was there, older, a more established marriage, more established career, more established family, and that was to bounce a check. That was horrible. What kind of Christian would do it? I would never do that. And we all felt properly chastised for our peers, like, what were you thinking of? Why did you let this happen to you? We all look bad now, but we kind of rallied, it's like, it's okay. And to her credit, now I will say, to her credit, she came back the next week and apologized and explained that God had taught her a very valuable lesson.
Because her bounce a check?
She bounced a check. And didn't mean to, didn't know, was an honest mistake. But she realized that she had judged harshly for the same sin, right? And like I said, to her credit, she raised her hand and made her mea culpas, right? She said, I'm guilty. And of course, all was immediately forgiven, and no one ever said anything else about it. But the lesson was, we must be careful how we judge and how we treat others. Okay, that's kind of the point there. So moving on, verse 20. There. Fire goes out without wood. Anybody who's ever been camping will understand that. Had a dear brother go camping with us one time, and the men in the church decided we needed men's fellowship. In January.
A camping trip.
And we need men. We're going to do what men do. We're going camping. So they go camping. Here, let me.
Is he paying attention to the lesson?
I don't think he is. That was judgment right there. So we go camping, and I'm like, I did a lot of camping out when I was younger, in the cold and in the wet and in the rain, and I'm just like so over that. I like being in the woods so much, I built my house in the woods. So now I can sit in my living room and look out my window and go, look at all the wonderful outdoors that I live in.
You built your house in a swamp.
Yeah.
That too. So we have to go camping this weekend, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not kidding when I tell you they drug me kicking and screaming. Because I said, do you know how cold it's going to get? It's going to be below freezing tonight. Perfect. This is not the weather to go camping in. But here we go. We must go. I said, okay, we'll go. But I ain't going to be happy about it. So we get out there. We build a big fire. And got all the tents pointed at the fire so that the heat will come in. And I wake up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I mean, it is cold. And I look out there, and there's a dear brother. And he is, we had big fire. And he is kicking and moving that wood out like that. I'm like, what are you doing? I woke up, what are you doing? He said, I'm making the fire bigger. It's getting cold.
No.
Brother, that's not how you make a fire bigger. You don't spread it out. You put it in and put more on top of it, right? And bless his heart, he was cold. He wanted the fire to be bigger, so he thought to spread it out a little bit and it'd get bigger. So fire goes out. Fire goes out without wood.
Now you're really moaning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, you go get some wood and you put that fire back together right now. Yeah. There was a couple of them that needed something. Fire goes out without wood. And here we go. Quarrels disappear when gossip stops. A quarrelsome person starts fights as easily as hot embers like charcoal or fire lights wood. Okay? Now, if you've got dry wood, do you know how much fire it takes to start a fire? An ember. So I had a little pole barn, and I had 3-ish cords of wood stored up under it, so it was nice and dry, getting ready for winter. And a certain individual in my family who will remain nameless on Christmas Day decided that with a buddy of theirs, they wanted to build a campfire.
Talk bad about my son.
He's so funny.
And they said, where can we build a campfire? And I said, well, there's a little slab right there. I said, build your little campfire right there. And they were trying to get this campfire lit, and it wouldn't light. And they took a mattress that had been up and under that pole barn, tore the stuffing out of it, tried to light this thing, and it wouldn't light. So they finally came in, so we couldn't get it to light. I said, well, okay. And 20, 30 minutes later, I got a neighbor knocking on my door.
Oh, no.
He said, neighbor, do you mean to be burning your pole barn down? I look over, and the flames are 30 feet high. I mean, this thing is whoosh. One of them embers. I mean, from the mattress, it just caught in the breeze, and it blowed off into there, and it kindled a fire, and there wasn't no putting it out.
Oh, no.
Because it was too far for a water hose, but I ran over there with a couple of fire extinguishers, and you know what that fire did? Ha, ha, ha! But guess what? As soon as all that wood was gone, the fire was gone too. Actually, the fire went out a little bit before then because the tin roof on that pole barn collapsed and smothered it. And then
the
it
fire
just
department had something to do with it too.
no fire department came out for that. The tin fell on it and it smoldered until everything was gone and the tin was melted and smoldered.
Not smoldered. Schmoldered.
Smoldered. So a quarrelsome person starts fight as easily as hard. And I'll tell you how easy that was. That was very easy. So some of y'all that's been a little quarrelsome tonight.
Well, so here's another thing, okay?
Do I need to ring the rabbit trail alert?
Rabbit trail alert.
Okay, rabbit trail alert.
Another thing you've got to remember about that is some people don't catch fire as quickly and easily as others do. Translation.
You're right. Some people
You
are
got people that run around with their feelings not on their fingertips, on the end of the nerve ending at the tip of their finger. And you brush by them. Don't even touch them. Let the wind of your presence go by. They blow up because they're that easily offended. That's why you got to be careful.
There are some people that are soaked in gasoline.
Yes.
And they're going to go up if you just look at them. Okay? And this last verse, rumors or gossip, in this case, are dainty morsels that sink deep into one's heart. So looking at this in the family setting, and by extension, I mean the family of God, quarrels and hurt feelings eventually will be healed. But not until, and this is a little phrase we use at work all the time, right? Not until the termite in the timbers is found. Right? You know what termite in the timbers is? A termite in the timber is this. You're in a meeting. So let's say I'm in a meeting here, and we got a proposal, new idea. And I say, you on board with this idea? And he says, yes. And I get yeses from every person at the table. And then one of them folks, as soon as we get out of this meeting, starts to go around going, that is the stupidest idea I have ever heard of.
So something when you're sitting at the table.
But that's the termite in the timbers. They eating away at the strength, but they're doing it behind the scenes, okay? So the ember in the wood pile. You have to find out who's doing that, right? And in the family setting, the spreading of rumors and if you know something about somebody, and we saw this in Proverbs a couple of chapters ago. If you know something about somebody, if somebody's confessed a sin to you because they were afraid they offended you, you need to take that to the grave with you. And if 50 years after you die, they dig you up and they ask you what it was, you need to be as silent as the grave. Not telling you. I was talking with my boss today, and he was talking about how, some people at 65, he's 65, and some people at 65 are in pretty good shape, and some people at 65 have got one foot in the grave. I said, well, next time somebody accuses you of, looking pretty rough for your age, just tell them, oh, no, man, I died 10 years ago, and look at me. I'm still in pretty good shape. Right? But we have to understand that these quarrels, these hurt feelings, it all starts from gossip and rumors. And as Christian, you may hear one, but it needs to die in your ears so that it never reaches your tongue. Right? We don't repeat. If you know something about somebody else, or if you suspect you know something about somebody else, you got one of two things you should do. Never mention it again, or go directly to that person and go, look, I heard a thing. And if it's true, it's troubling. And tell them that thing, right? To the person. In other words, what do we call that? Going to the horse's mouth. Yep. Now, how many of y'all ever been around horses? I know he has, right? If you get around the horse's mouth, what are you liable to get? Bit, right? So just be careful, right? This is where that other verse that we just read comes in. Be careful about taking a dog by the ears, right? Sometimes it's better to just swallow what you know and never let it see the light of day, okay? Rumors, now it says, rumors like a dainty morsel. That's an interesting turn of phrase there. It's a sweet. How many of y'all have at least one? I'm going to give y'all the benefit of the doubt. Have one food item that if it's set in front of you, you would not be able to resist. You're going to have at least 15 or 20 bites. You probably don't eat anything. I don't even want to hear it. Okay, and you're still standing there staring at me. Quit it. Right? I have no weaknesses at all. Right? We all have something that. Now look, if some of y'all thinking cupcakes and cookies, right? No. How about okay, chips and salsa? How about crawfish?
No.
Or shrimp?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
You put a plate of fried shrimp in front of me,
He said it.
I'm going to eat every shrimp on that plate,
Yup.
whether I need to or not. Right? And if there's another plate, I'll eat them too because I don't want them to be left out. I want them all to be together. They're swimming around in my stomach. Them little shrimps going around. Okay? But we each of us have our weakness. A rumor is like that. It's very difficult. It's sweet and it's appealing and it's very difficult to resist. We have trouble resisting these. We need to learn how. Right? We need to learn to not partake, as it were. Okay? And it sinks deep into one's heart. In other words, it contaminates. It's like a poison. This came up in a conversation I was having on an unrelated subject, but a couple of 300 years ago, women as a society, as a culture, decided that pale skin was the thing. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Wanted white skin. You know how they achieved it?
Go outside.
No. that wasn't good enough.
Painted themselves.
Well, there's some that did that too, but they actually began to take small doses of arsenic.
What?
Uh-huh. Don't hold back. Tell us what you really think.
That's the reason I keep saying women should never been able to vote.
Oh, good Lord, have mercy. He's just kidding. He's just kidding.
Jokes.
There was. Now you're all right, Becca. There were some that would paint, but you know what was in the paint that they would use? The makeup that they would use? Lead.
Yeah.
Right? And so that all that began to poison, right? So arsenic, they were taking poison. Do you know when you go to have, I know none of you ladies do because y'all are all beautiful anyway. So I'm trying to make up a little bit for this Neanderthal over here. Lord have mercy. But how many of y'all know one of the beauty, and I use the term loosely, beauty treatments for wrinkles? You know what Botox stands for? Botulism. That's right, botulism. And what is botulism?
I don't remember the official one anymore, but yeah, it's pretty much a poison.
It's a deadly plague. It's a deadly plague. You get to botulism, you're going to die. And they injecting this stuff. And you tell me, oh, the arsenic, they were stupid. We still in it. We still there. We still there.
Well, when women don't wear makeup, that's when they're the prettiest.
That's when they're the prettiest.
Isn't the Tide Pod generation voting by now?
Huh?
Isn't the Tide Pod generation voting by now?
Yes. So, yeah, we have a generation now that if they see it on TikTok, they have to go try it, right? Like, oh, look, Tide Pod. Let's swallow that and see what happens. Okay. So don't poison your heart in the giving and exchanging of rumors. Okay. Oh my goodness. All right, so let's read these. Verse 23. Smooth words may hide a wicked heart, just as a pretty glaze covers a clay pot. People may cover their hatred with pleasant words, but they're deceiving you. They pretend to be kind, but don't believe them. Their hearts are full of many evils. While their hatred may be concealed by trickery, their wrongdoing will be exposed in public. If you set a trap for others, you will get caught in it yourself. If you roll a boulder down on others, it will crush you instead. A lying tongue hates its victim, and flattering words cause ruin. So here we see the flatterer or deceiver, okay, and the smooth and pleasant words, right? And it uses a pot, a glaze. How many of y'all have gone to Garden Center or one of those places like that and bought a real pretty flower pot, right? It's sitting right next to it. I mean, this thing is all painted up and shiny, right? And sitting right next to it is that dull red clay flower pot, you know, the kind, got the whole bottom. And you're like, that's like $1.440, and this one is like 5 times that much, but ooh, this one is pretty. And you know what the difference is between them? The glaze. Because at the core of what they are, they're both clay pots.
Yep.
And you know what you're going to put in that pot? Dirt. I want something to put dirt in, but I want to pay $45 for it.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I'll tell you what. So go.
Some of the extra comments I keep hearing is just making
Okay.
it more fun to hear.
Okay. So look. So go down to the store and buy you a bucket of paint, a plastic bucket of paint. Use the paint up, wash the bucket out, and put dirt in the plastic bucket. Oh no, can't do that. Why? Because it's not pretty. Right? So we want to have a pretty pot to put dirt in. Okay, fine. And that's what this is talking about, right? That just in the same way, smooth or flattering words hide a wicked heart. Just the way that glaze makes that clay pot seem like it's something else, right? Smooth words. Now, I'm going to tell y'all, the first place my mind went, okay, when I read this, the first place it went was to that person who butters you up. You ever had one of them? You ladies probably know real quick what I'm talking about, because none of the guys in here are handsome enough to ever have women fawning over them. So now we not only know that they're not handsome enough, but they a little off in the head too, because they think they are.
I don't think he's been listening to the sermon either.
But you go out now. Most of us were young at some time in the distant past. Brother Alton never went out socially when he was young because they were afraid of the dinosaurs.
Oh my.
But most of us, when we were young, right, and I was at one time, I know it's hard to believe for those of you who are younger in the room, I was once as you are, and take a good look because I am as you will be. He's over here looking at me. He's over here going, no way, man, no way. Yeah, way, buddy. Yeah, way.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, way.
You mean I'm getting my hair back?
Yes! Brother, I don't know when I lost control, but it's gone for sure. No, I want you to notice I was talking to this young man over here. Not to you. There's no hope for you. Oh, my goodness gracious. So we would go out and we would do a thing where we would go to a nightclub. Most of y'all know what a nightclub is. And so us guys, right, we would try to find a pretty girl to dance with and maybe strike up some kind of relationship with. And what was the first thing that we would do? We would go start talking to them. We would flatter them. My, but you look pretty. Okay? Or words to that effect. Some of us were smoother than others. Okay? If Brother Shannon was here, see, his approach was, ugh, Trump. So,
Not really. He was a very shy boy.
no, he knocked her down off her skates is what he did, and tried to.
Well, I did the same thing to mine. That's where I met mine.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Who knew Proverbs 26 was going to be this much fun, right? Tell your friends. We'll be here next week. But we think, and that's the first thing I thought of, right? It's the flatterer, right? What's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this, right? It's the buttering up. Now, we get that too as guys, just not that overt, right? Where somebody butters you up. They play to your vanity, right? And they're trying to deceive you so they can get something from you. But there's something else in play here, because the New Testament offers us some warnings about the deceptiveness of smooth words. So I want to read some of them for you. Romans chapter 16. And now I make one more appeal, dear brothers and sisters. Watch out for people who cause divisions, upset people's faith by teaching things contrary to what you have been taught. Stay away from them. Such people are not serving Christ our Lord, but they are serving their own personal interests. By smooth talk and glowing words, they deceive innocent people. 2 Timothy chapter 4. For a time is coming when people will no longer listen to sound and wholesome teaching. They will follow. Oh. So she just admitted she's not paying attention.
I realized you just did something really funny while you were talking.
Okay. Say, time is coming when people will no longer listen to sound teaching. They will follow their own desires and will look for teachers who will tell them whatever their itching ears want to hear. And finally, in Jude, and there are no chapter numbers in Jude because it's just one. These people are grumblers and complainers, living only to satisfy their desires. They brag loudly about themselves. They flatter others to get what they want. So, you want to see those? Oh, okay. Well, you were leaning over. I thought maybe you were trying to see what it was before I went on. Okay, you got it. All right, so I think here what they're talking about, the lying prophet. Okay, and by the lying prophet, I mean the false preacher. Now, we have in our society today churches, whole churches, ministers, who are telling people what they want to hear. Okay, as if, for instance, same-sex marriage is okay as long as it's true love. Right? What is that?
That's a lie.
That's a lie. That's itchy ears. That's ears. Tell me what I want to hear. How many of us, show of hands, y'all are not on camera, everybody's looking at me, okay? How many of us love to hear what we want to hear, right? If we want to do something, I want to hear how I'm justified in doing it. What I've learned is this. When people come to me and ask advice, do you think I should do this or that? They already know what they need to do. They're just looking for a way to justify what they think is wrong, right? They want me to help them. They want to give me a loophole. Give me a justification because I know what the right thing to do is, and I don't want to do it. Most of our struggle, when we struggle over a decision, not always, but most of our struggle is because we know what the right thing is and we don't want to do it. We don't want to go that way. I want a good reason not to. Help me out. Right? And so I get on them all the time. I was like, well, no, you tell me what you think you ought to do. Let me hear what you think. So these verses are highlighting how hard it is to spot the deceitful, right? Verses 24 and 26. People may cover their hatred with pleasant words, but they're deceiving you. They pretend to be kind. Don't believe them. Many years ago, there was an evangelist, and you would go to his rallies. He would set up these rallies in these various cities, and he would show up and claim to be great. Man, a guy could hear directly from God, right? And he would come out and he would be starting his sermon. He said, "Wait! There's somebody here. Mary, you're over here. Mary, you're having trouble with your feet. God's going to heal you tonight. Mary, jump up because she's sitting in a chair right over there. Oh, right? And this went on for years. And come to find out, people were filling in questionnaires as they came in. Do you follow the brother in his ministry? You know, and they'd give their names, and of course they kept records on everybody who ever donated money. People would write in, "Please pray for me. I'm having trouble with my feet." And they would, she's here tonight. She's sitting over there. And he had a little thing in his ear, and his wife was in the back, and she was telling him, "Okay, Mary's here. She's sitting off to your left. She's been sending us letter after letter. Pray for my aunt, or pray for my feet, or pray for whatever." Okay. And he would play that off as though he were hearing from God. I've watched ministers who be in mid-sermon and suddenly go, wait a minute, God's talking to me. Yes, I hear. Okay, now, over here. And you're like, wait, what? Now, I'm not saying that can't happen. Okay? But what I am saying is that I think these verses talk about the false prophets, the teachers who will bring, and they'll be smooth. They'll have arguments, right? This is why we are given our own copy of God's Word. This is why not me, not Brother Shannon, not Brother Billy Graham, not whatever minister it is that you just absolutely revere, is to be trusted without having your own Bible in your hand, without doing your own research. Let me ask y'all a question. How many of y'all would go with me tonight to the nearest restaurant, order your favorite dish, then let me cut it up and chew it for you before you ate it? Oh! There's always one in the crowd, right? That's great for babies, but no. You know what Paul said? Paul told us, he said, y'all adults, y'all shouldn't be on milk. Y'all should be eating meat, and you should be chewing it for yourself. What was he talking about?
The Word.
This Bible right here. Y'all all adults. You ought to be serving up your own dinners and chewing it for yourself. And when you come to hear me or Brother Shannon or anybody, you ought to be going, dang, I was just reading that. Oh, I've read that before. You right, brother. Amen. Oh, that's an interesting idea. I've never thought about that before. I'm going home and I'm going to pull that book out and I'm going to check it out for myself. You know why? You know God says is responsible for your salvation? You. You is. You.
We is.
That's right. I'm not going to be there to answer for what you believe. Well, on Wednesday nights, Brother Eric was my Bible study teacher. He's here with me now, God. He's going to speak on my behalf. No, hey, sorry. I'm going to be busy speaking on my own behalf. Actually, I'll be relying on Jesus to speak on my behalf, but I'm not speaking for you, right? I don't know how many poor deluded souls think their wife is going to speak for them on Judgment Day, right? It's hard to spot the deceitful. Eventually, the comeuppance or exposure or public humiliation will be experienced. They caught that guy with the thing in his ear. They exposed him. Opened the door, caught his wife, giving him radio messages. You know what he said? Well, sometimes God needs a little help. I don't know if he ever went to the jail or not. I don't ever know what happened to him. I know after that, nobody pretty much followed him anymore. You know what's the one thing I do? Well, I can't ask y'all this. The one thing I have always admired about Billy Graham, almost every other big-time television famous evangelist always had some scandal that popped up that ruined him. But not Billy Graham. But not Billy Graham. If y'all ever make it to Charlotte, North Carolina, I encourage you to go see his library. Because if you ain't saved, you will be. they will see to it. Okay, but he told his sons, no, you can't do this because my name isn't important. And the way they finally got him to agree to it, his son said, what if it's your name on the ticket, but it's all Jesus once they get in the building? And he said, well, okay, I'll do that. And when you walk in there, it's one constant evangelistic message all the way through. Sprinkled about with Billy Graham memorabilia. So, but eventually everybody gets caught. Then there's this personal warning: don't set a trap. Now, most of us in here aren't that sneaky. We're not that devious. Okay, but if you are, be careful, because whatever trap you set. How many of y'all have ever read the book of Esther? Haman tried to set a trap, and he ended up hanging in his own trap, and that's what that's talking about. And finally, the true feeling or motive of the deceiver is hatred. Right? They're not lying to you so that they can necessarily get rich or that they can get ahead for themselves. They hate you. And the effect is ruination. And there are people in churches that are being lied to right and left. They don't have enough sense to open the Bible and see that they're being lied to, and it's going to ruin their lives. And That's all I have for this evening. We will pick up there next week.
Do you ever think about the Jim Jones thing? How people just
Oh.
follow him and
Oh, yeah.
how he could deceive so many people and
There was a
they
moment.
just took him-
Yeah,
They just took his word for everything.
everything. There was a moment in his ministry when he held the Bible up and he said, "Is this the word of God or am I?" He said, "I give you